Parmesh Shah, Global Lead Data-Driven Digital Agriculture, the World Bank. I would also like to invite on stage our esteemed panelist, Mr. L.K. Atik, Additional Chief Secretary, Department of Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, Government of Karnataka. I think they all can be welcomed with a big round of applause. Mr. Abhishek Singh, President and Chief Executive Officer, National E-Governance Division, Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India. Mr. T. Koshi, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Open Network Digital Commerce. Ms. Nidhi Bhasin, Chief Executive Officer, NASCOM Foundation. And Mr. Aniket Dogar, Co-Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Haq Darshak. Mr. Abhishek Singh is here. So over to you, Dr. Parmesha.
Thank you very much. I hope that we will make this session interesting so that it doesn't become a graveyard session after the lunch. Generally, it's called a graveyard session. So we will try to make it exciting because we have a very exciting panel here. And the topic is also very interesting. So I'll first make some opening remarks and set the context, and then I'll start inviting and introducing each of the panelists to make initial 6-minute each interventions on the area they represent and the experience they bring so that you all know where they are coming from. And then I'll engage them in a conversation around 3 or 4 questions. But I'm also promising you, the audience, who has been very patient since morning, that I will bring you into the conversation in this session. This will not be a one-sided, throwing everything at you kind of a session. So please keep your thinking caps on while the people are presenting, and keep the questions ready. I'll take a sample of questions and then bring it back to the panel as well. So my name is Parmesh Shah. I'm currently the global lead for data-driven digital agriculture and innovations. And I used to be also the global lead for rural livelihoods at the bank earlier. And I worked with a lot of you, and it's very nice to see a lot of you here who were partners when we were designing the National Rural Livelihood Mission. And I was also from the bank side, part of the leading that team, which was designing this investment in National Rural Livelihood Mission at that stage. Now, to just set the context, Aadhaar was just coming. Digital payments were nowhere in picture when we designed NRLM. A lot of connectivity was very low at that stage. So we had some kind of a thinking that we will use technology, digital technology, but clearly that was not the only thing. We were more focused on what I would call it the physical side and the institutional side of it than the digital side. Digital side was restricted to creating an information system, a data platform, which would digitize parts of the work which we do in RLM, but we did not look at digital as the enabler or transformer as we look at now. Circa 2023, I think the situation has changed drastically. All the data which points out, you can see now, is very different. Almost everyone has Aadhaar. The number of ownership of mobile phones in rural areas during COVID period has now exceeded the ownership in urban areas, which is a phenomenal data. It means ownership of the smartphones even has increased phenomenally in the last 5 or 6 years. The internet access has reached 60%. Now all this is happening, and then lots of services like direct benefit transfer and all, which you know, is being delivered through electronic mechanisms. The Bank Sakhi program, which we are talking about, also has reached a stage where a lot of women have learned how to make digital transactions using point of sales terminals, and they can make even the pension payments to disabled people at their doorstep, and also help people withdraw money in accounts. I will tell you that having been involved in the design of these programs in 2009 or 10, I never thought this was coming. So I think the change in the decade is very transformational. So I think when these programs have to be designed for the next generation, they have to take digitization and digital technologies and access to these technologies and applications as a new thing there. One more thing we have to understand, as many participants talked about, the number of youth in rural areas would be very important now. And when I was in Bihar and talking with the chief secretary and the government, they said the kind of mobilization we have done with women now has to be done with all the youth, young boys and girls. And the kind of mobilization which we will have to do with them is not going to be the same as we did earlier 10 years back. You will have to register people through digital means. Can create a digital registry of all the people who come into this program. Mobilization can be done through WhatsApp messages as opposed to calling a physical meeting all the time to do that. So the communication, the transactions and all will have to be done differently. In fact, we have to reimagine that if young people were currently implementing an RLM, which I think an RLM should not only talk about women, but should talk about the generational change which will occur in rural areas, especially with the issues we have of urban, rural, and all the other things. We need to come out with a new model which really creates social entrepreneurs out of people who are in rural areas, especially the people, women, and all. It's not enough to everyone to become an economic entrepreneur, but the kind of training and all what we have done in the last 10 years should be enable people to become digitally enabled entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs. And they should start a new revolution. And we'll talk to Mr. Koshi and all, because we'll pose a question to him that this is such an exciting e-commerce platform which they are trying to come up with, absolutely new generational thinking in India. How does the digital divide between rural and urban not come in the e-commerce way? Currently, e-commerce is also not penetrating a lot of rural areas at this stage. How will it do that? This is a question which we will ask today. The second thing is the whole digital learning and skills. You will be surprised to know that I am trying to learn from a teacher in Maharashtra, I forgot his name, who has developed a whole digital learning curriculum for all its students. It has QR codes and all which they give to the students, and students can go and look at all the videos and all when they go back. And so the way the education, which people talked about, the human capital development, will have to be done in such a way that people don't have to come to an urban area to study something for higher education, but you could give them a continuous learning through digital methods to learn from that. So I think the digital skills and digital learning will be enabled skills and learning will be a very important factor to look at. So another thing which we need to look at is that the prerequisite to this is a digital public infrastructure, which I think the government has invested quite well. And we are now going into G20 and telling that that digital public infrastructure we want to offer to the whole world. Because why should the whole world go through the same hoops? We could leapfrog this significantly. Now, what do I mean by digitization? Let's take the case of all farmer producer organizations. There's no digitization of any farmer producer organization, a database where people can go and digitally have all the data about farmer producer organizations. If you don't do that, they will have tremendous problem in accessing resources and other kinds of things. So if you digitize all the producers, consumers, farmer organizations, and create a digital social and economic registry of all these people who work in the rural economy, you will be able to unpack a lot of things as you go forward. So I would say digitization is a prerequisite, and investing in a digital public infrastructure which invests in digitization is important. Now, it's very interesting. I'll share with you some global experiences also in this regard. In Kenya, we have digitized all the farmer organizations and cooperatives. And we have very fast in 3 years reached 3 times more transactions in 3 years itself. Leapfrog that completely. So to me, digitization is a very important investment, which I think the government did with the Aadhaar stack and all that, the JAM, the Trinity, the payment stack, all the government did. I think rural areas need a rural digitization effort of a very high order, but not just SHG members, but all the other people like the banks, the entrepreneurs, everyone has to be registered into that format so that people can start transacting with each other and the cost of accessing data should become lower. Now, our research shows that people spend 70% time on accessing data, 20% times on products and services, and 10% on scale. That's why scale never gets reached. So we have to just turn this pyramid. by making this data available to people so that all the people who are innovators, and in our country there's no dearth of innovators, can produce more products and services dedicated to the rural areas. The second is data. So I think I'm not talking about data for the sake of it, but I think we need to create a big data platform, open data platform, for all the information and data which we are talking about the rural areas accessible to people. So I think if data is available and there's a protocol for sharing of that data, then you will have more investments coming in on innovations coming in from that. So clearly in India, the fintech investments have increased phenomenally because the payment platform was developed. The agtech investments are still not kept pace with the fintech because we don't have a data stack of that kind. And rural tech, if you call something like rural tech or rural innovation hubs, will increase exponentially if we make these foundational investments there. So I will make a case for Ministry of Rural Development to really invest in the digitization and the data part, not looking at it as just a kind of an investment, but it's a major enabler for economy to grow and innovation to grow in this area. The entrepreneurship can thrive very rapidly in this area to do that. The final point I want to make is about, I think the issue of agriculture is very important. We have been obsessed with working only with farmers and the production. But the biggest gains which have come all the world over from agriculture have come in when you work on value addition, you work on processing, you work on value addition and all those things. So I think these are the things where we will have to invest. And I think I like the examples I have seen from NRLM also. You have this Koshiki and other producer companies in dairy, which you have done. They're almost like a 50, 60, 100 crore, 200 crore companies being made by the women who are working on dairy cooperatives. So entrepreneurs are coming. But the conversion of the existing capital into these kinds of 100 crore organizations is still very low. In the whole country, we have just 46 or 47 of these women-run organizations at that stage. In a country of such a huge country, we have 10 crore women as members of SHGs, but we have hardly 3% or 2% of them. Why does that not get converted? I think there are two factors. One is you need to get more capital to the enterprise side of it. And personally, I think you should develop a micro enterprise registry, data registry of micro entrepreneurs. There's no registry of micro entrepreneurs who are working on it. You have a registry, don't stop at that. We need to develop a credit score for micro entrepreneurs and producer organizations. So if you develop a credit score, then the banks don't have to keep on going and doing rapid appraisals. In India, an urban credit has expanded because of the credit score model being there, and credit scores are increasingly being used to give money to people whom the banks normally used to give money to. So I think a national credit score for smallholder farmers, national credit score for micro entrepreneurs using digital technologies, and you can use AI and machine learning for that right now, because you can see the behavior of what the SHGs have done, how much they have repaid with their own money, and you have such a good track record of those people that if it's converted to credit score, the bank should be able to give money for the credit score there. This will be a very liberating thing where credit access can increase exponentially rather than the way it's expanding right now, where you have very detailed protocols for appraisal and all that. I think we need to automate the whole appraisal methodology to bring credit scores for a lot of smallholders there. The final thing I think we need to look at is that more jobs get created out of logistics and other things, basically. Now, take the case of Alibaba. When they started working on e-commerce and taking it to rural areas, they started developing agents in rural areas, entrepreneurs who will become their agents to sell their produce in e-commerce there. And what happened when they saw that trucks were going to the villages, but they were coming back with nothing? And Alibaba immediately realized that this model cannot sustain. Then they started sourcing produce and developing a model by which people will bring in a lot of produce from the rural areas. And even Pinduoduo, which is again even more advanced company than Alibaba in China, e-commerce company, it has built very systematic ways by which every micro entrepreneur can make its own video and use the Pinduoduo platform to sell its products. So at a point of time, there are thousands of videos being shown by micro entrepreneurs in China on the Pinduoduo channel, and they are able to sell it there. So this is something we need to look at what kind of models are being world globally. So, so with the ministry could really engage thousands of videos made on the product. So this model whereby you have to have a Saras Mela to do everything is still, I would consider, it is still old school. You have to come with a new model whereby direct selling can be made by them using the e-commerce platforms and channels there. So I have personally seen these videos where a Chinese woman came to India, sourced shawls from Amritsar and all the places, and was showing a live video to the Chinese consumers of what kind of shawls you can get from India. And that she was generating orders and orders and orders. Within 1 hour, she got orders worth $40,000 from an Indian market as opposed to from the Chinese market, just because that channel and technology was available there. So I think we need to look at not just the traditional way of looking at things, but we have to look at the other models which we need to use to do that. Logistics, transport, microservices, processing, all these will have to become, energy will also become important. So I think the service delivery market, if you take all these things for rural areas, itself our estimation is that market is $100 billion. If we really do this well and bring in top-notch functionality in terms of e-commerce and others there, we could really create $100 billion, can create an opportunity of the kind there. Right now, if you calculate the turnover of all the Saras markets you do in a year, it's a very good initiative. And personally, I think we have promoted that for a long time. That is hardly annually, not even $1 billion. You have to look at how does the rural economy become a size of $100 billion? That's the project we need to have. Aspirationally, if you don't have a $100 billion rural economy project, then you will use very transactional models and not transformational models. So let me stop there and just add one more point. Even the entitlements, what we have, and I think you will talk about that in Hak Dakshak, I personally feel that as we have the Bank Sakhi model, we need an entitlement facilitator and provider also, which brings all the government programs under one umbrella, and everyone has a single window approach of getting all the entitlements under one window. And I hope you will be able to answer some of my questions on that, on how we go about doing it basically there. Private sector, Nidhi represents NASSCOM. Is really a NASSCOM Foundation has got all the big IT players, startups as part of their members. How can we bring a public-private platform to do that in that way? So we will try to explore how we can dynamize the situation there. And then I think Abhishek leads the e-governance work in many respects. E-governance is still, I think in rural areas, is still, we have scratched the surface. We are not there yet. What else we need to do if Ministry of Rural Development and the World Bank to invest in the foundational infrastructure to make sure that the e-governance becomes pervading. Now, Mr. Atik definitely brings a very rich experience of Karnataka, where they've gone way forward in terms of digitizing and using data for panchayat services. So I think we will ask Mr. Atik to talk about that and tell us how we can take it to the next level in the whole country. So what I've done in the end, I started introducing my panelists. And so we'll straight away go to the first panelist. So Atik, over to you. Next 6 minutes. What are you doing in Karnataka, which we should learn from? Please, 6 minutes, floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Parmesh. My name is L.K. Atik. I am Additional Chief Secretary, Department of Rural Development and Panchayat Raj, Government of Karnataka. I have been in this role for almost 5 years now. So, among the many points that Dr. Parmesh mentioned, one of the issues that perhaps was not emphasized enough, which I would like to bring in, is the whole use of digital technologies for governance in the of the rural, the Panchayat Raj institutions. Karnataka is one of the pioneering states when it comes to deepening of democracy through Panchayat Raj institutions. So what we have been doing is that we, in fact, this is a more than a decade-old project where we have been digitizing governance in the panchayats. So we have about 6,000 panchayats in Karnataka, about 225 block panchayats and 30 district panchayats. So uh, if you want to uh, bring in transparency and accountability, then e-governance is something that cannot just remain at the state and the district level, but it has to go down to the village. So one of our key flagship program for digitization of the gram panchayats was a software called Panchtantra, which we started in 2010 2011. So this is basically, we started with the gram panchayat finance and account rules, and those were digitized, and the entire the accountancy of the panchayats, their resources, their expenditure, etc., was digitized. But over the years we felt that, and also the village properties, the entire register of properties were digitized. Over the years we felt that it has served a very useful purpose, but it needs to go beyond just being a digitization of a few services, but we need to use digital technologies in a transformational way. So we came up with a project called Panchtantra 2. We call it P2. Our P2 uh, basically uses the digital platform, the whole technologies to assist the governance, and in a very transformational way. Which basically we this software assists the gram panchayats hold meetings through the digital platform. Meetings are fixed online, and SMS and a WhatsApp message will go to all the members, and the members will attend the meeting by logging in through their WhatsApp, through their system. We have a single sign on, and the meeting proceedings are immediately drawn up and they are digitally uploaded, and the meeting proceedings are digitally signed, and they go through a WhatsApp message to all the gram panchayat members. The e-attendance of the gram panchayat members is taken like this. The holding of a gram panchayat meeting is a very fundamental democratic process, which actually is denied to many gram panchayat members in many places, because the karmcharis themselves hold some meetings, and then they will say that the meeting has been held, and therefore, so this is just one example. Then properties. The Karnataka has about 1.5 crore properties, and these properties were not assessed properly, and we found that the property tax, the total property tax demand was about uh, 350 crores. We made a lot of efforts. We brought it to 766 crores. Then through P2, when we started digitizing it, and through an automated process using the guidance value issued by the revenue department, when we started recalculating the taxes, suddenly the current demand this year has come up to 1600 crores, which is almost 120% above what we were collecting just a year ago. So therefore, there are a lot of technologies which could be leveraged at the gram panchayat level to so that the governance gets transformed, and the people make use of these technologies at the gram panchayat level. This is one thing we have done. We have various other softwares we have done. We have done a works monitoring software at the gram panchayat. So the whole idea is that the if you are dealing with 6,000 panchayats, and it's very difficult to really provide oversight over these from the state government, because we are pushing in a lot of money to the gram panchayats. Under Narega alone we spend about 8,000 crores. Under PMGSY we spend about 4 to 5,000 crores. Under 15th finance commission every year 3,000 crore goes there. Gone are the days when panchayats were not having money. Now panchayats have the money, and now how do we really make sure that the panchayats are actually spending the money? People have and panchayats are held accountable to the citizens, and this so these are the things that we have done. And this, I think, particularly our P2 is a model which can be leveraged across the country. We can So that is one point I wanted to make. Another point is that the government of India has also been using digital technologies for rural governance. But one comment I would like to make is that the government of India's software generally focus on collecting the data, and rather than using the giving control of the data to the panchayats. That's one thing. The second thing, we find that the government of India softwares are generally one size fits all, whereas in many cases we sometimes are ahead. Many of the states are ahead of the government of India's software. We have our own software, but then we are asked to subsume into the Government of India software. And therefore, I think one of the recommendations I would like to make to Government of India is that we should democratize data. Because data actually we collect, gram panchayats collect, and then we give it to Government of India. Then we lose control over it. The only way we can get back the data is by downloading uh, Excel sheets, which is a very cumbersome process. So what we would like is that we have been requesting Government of India that give us API access to this software. So let a thousand flowers bloom. So what we should do is that many states are doing their own software. Kerala has its own software, Karnataka has its own software, and we have our own peculiarities. The way the Gram Panchayat institutions function is very different in Karnataka compared to Kerala, to compared to West Bengal, or compared to Madhya Pradesh. And many states have their own digital stacks. So let there be a API interface between Government of India and state government software, so that we can build on this stacks. That is one another aspect I wanted to mention. Uh, I think just one more point I would like to mention is that uh, uh, we are running uh, rural libraries. Rural libraries earlier in Karnataka used to be under the control of Education Department, and that time the rural libraries used to mean one library assistant and one almirah full of books, and nothing else. In 2019, government decided to give this to the panchayats. Once it was given to the panchayats, we started converging resources from 15th Finance Commission, Gram Panchayat's own resources, Narega, etc., to build reading rooms, to provide computers. So now we have about 5,500 digital libraries, and we also went into requested the CSR, and they have given us about 1,042-inch LED screens with internet. What this has done is that this has created a digital infrastructure, learning infrastructure in the village. And the libraries used to be only the adults used to come to read newspapers. Now we enrolled 35 lakh students, 3.5 million students, to become members of the library. Immediately after the school, we find that 20, 30, 40 children are in our libraries, and they're exploring YouTube videos. They are looking at, they're googling things. And this is something that, this is the digital divide. People didn't have access to this much of infrastructure. They used to have a smartphones because of the post COVID learning infrastructure, etc., but again data would be a problem. Here we are giving you a learning center. This is another application of we have a series of such interventions we have made. So in addition to livelihoods, in addition to empowering citizens through other using of technologies, use of technology for strengthening governance of the Panchayat Raj institutions is equally important, and that is what I think we should also look at. We should also look at the models that we have developed, and those actually are scalable, and they're replicable in other states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Atik. So you can see the excitement bubbling in the people who are designing these things, and clearly, rural is a very vast topic. So the governance of rural institutions, on how that make that transparent, more driven by people. So what he says is right. Most of the time, data is taken away, and people don't spend time in analyzing the data and taking decisions based on that. So I think we have to reverse that process quite significantly, and many other interesting. I'll come to Mr. Atik later on. Abhishek, I want to come to you now. Abhishek is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the National E-Governance Division in Ministry of Electronics and IT. So Abhishek, can you talk about what's happening in this area, and also with specific reference to what's your experience with rural applications in e-governance? Over to you.
Thank you. And the stage is set with the address by Pramesh ji and Atik sir about what all technology can do and what are all the possibilities when we look at application of technology in the rural areas and how it can transform lives, empower people. So while it may be said that the adoption of technology and adoption of e-governance is not as high in the rural areas, but I would like to look at some of the trends that we are seeing. As was mentioned today, the number of mobile phones that we see in the rural areas has far exceeded the number that we see in the urban areas. The data consumption, the internet data consumption is also gone higher in the rural areas than in the urban areas. Then we are seeing a lot of projects which are leveraging technology, which are being used seamlessly in the rural areas with the expansion of 4G and now 5G. The possibilities of delivering services closer to citizens under Digital India program has expanded manifold. If you look at data with regard to, say, digital payments, about which we all talk about, and we all are users of digital payments here, the amount of digital payment transactions, UPI transactions, which happens in rural areas exceeds that in the urban areas. So two things. One, the belief that rural India is not ready for technology and that people are averse to technology is actually not true. Whenever technology services, applications are made simpler and made easily accessible, that the people do adopt it. When we started the e-governance program way back in 2006, and when we started digital and ramped up with the Digital India initiatives, the issue of digital inclusion has always been at the back of the mind. That's why from the day one, from the genesis of the program, the common service centers were initially conceived, which ensured that people who don't have a device, who don't have internet, or don't have the ability to access an e-service can go to a nearby CSC which offers assisted access. And all these CSCs, today there are more than 500,000 of them across the length and breadth of the country. They are run by entrepreneurs, they are run by village level entrepreneurs, as we call them, and they offer services to people, and that ensures that inclusion is ensured. Having said that, I would also like to mention two key points. One, that initially when we started implementing leveraging technology for in public service delivery programs, the initial intent was to prevent leakages, to ensure that frauds don't happen. So we started deduplication of ration cards by using Aadhaar, or we started, like in Manarega program, using Aadhaar to ensure that the real beneficiaries get money is transferred directly into the bank accounts of people. So the initial thing was to ensure technology to prevent misuse, to prevent leakages. But from there, what I am seeing now is that now we are moving ahead. While that remains a priority, but we are moving ahead in what ways we can use technology to create value in the rural economy. And that we are seeing in multiple sectors. Koshi is here, who would talk about the ONDC revolution, the e-commerce revolution. More and more sellers in the rural areas are getting onboarded on the e-commerce platform. With Ministry of Textiles, last month we launched a portal called indiahandmade.com that allows real users, that allows weavers and artisans from rural areas to sell their handicraft products on the platform directly to buyers. And we are seeing a lot of offtake of that, not only from buyers but also from sellers on that platform. In Manarega, the initial part was to ensure that DBT happens and the authentication of actual workers happens to Aadhaar authentication. But now what we are also working with the Ministry of Rural Development is that all Manrega beneficiaries have a legally guaranteed income, that 100 days of wages is given to them, that's guaranteed by law. But none of them have a salary certificate which they can use it to access a microfinance and access credit. But their ledger, the account, that the money that they get in their bank accounts on their Manrega cards, that we have started digitizing and ensuring that it's available in the DigiLocker. DigiLocker is an initiative under Digital India, and it's verifiable. So today, a pilot has been done in J&K, where today a Manrega beneficiaries can actually prove to a microfinance institution that yes, this is his earning, 100 days he works, he gets 300 rupees per day, 30,000 rupees is the income, and that's guaranteed by law. And if he can allow a banking institution to verify that, he can get a microfinance for maybe 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, with which he can set up a street vending job or any other profession that can help him sustain for the remaining 265 days of the year. So that will unlock so much of value by leveraging technology and enabling access to that. The account aggregator framework is trying to do the same thing for the big businesses and the urban customers. And this kind of model, if it's integrated in the account aggregator system, and if we're able to verify the cash flows of a Manrega beneficiary, the value that can be unlocked is immense. And similar thing for self-help groups. Like today we have self-help groups under the National Rural Livelihood Mission project, and we are implementing a project in association with the Rural Development Ministry called LOC-OS. LOC-OS, what it does is that again it digitizes the records of the self-help group meetings, the interlending that they do, and the entire financials of that. And if this is digitized and if it is made verifiable electronically through APIs, the value that it will create will be immense. Today, to get a revolving fund or to get a credit from the bank after the SHG has followed all their norms, still it requires a physical process. The bank manager will inspect and it will go through a physical process, and that's where the hardship comes in. If this process can be digitized, made electronic, then the time taken to approve the revolving fund or to the credit for the self-help group can really diminish, and it will again unlock a lot of value. So the investment the government is making in schemes like Manrega or the self-help groups can multiply multifold by using technology in this form. The Saras portal is another example wherein the products which are made by self-help groups are available online for procurement and all. So the applications that we are seeing of leveraging technology for adding value to it is immense. One thing also we notice is that whenever we are taking such technology to people, the issue of access, partly as I mentioned, was solved by the common service centers. But as we are going ahead and implementing more programs, what we find is that a lot of people are desiring to get services in Indian languages. So very often we make portals in English, Hindi, or maybe states like Karnataka, progressive states will make in their own local language. But most states are not able to offer multiple services in all Indian languages. And we always feel, we take pride very often in Digital India conclaves, saying that in India we have 875 million people connected to the net. But when we say that, we also recognize the fact that 500 million people are not connected. And many of these people are not connected because they are not comfortable in English or Hindi. And very often they are not comfortable in going to a website or downloading an app or identifying a captcha, distinguishing between a giraffe or a traffic light. It becomes very inconvenient for people in the rural areas. So what they desire is voice-based services. How they can talk to, just like we talk to an Alexa or a Siri, can we talk to an application in my mother tongue and ask for a service? So we are implementing a project called Bhashini, in which we are trying to ensure all services are available through such commands in mother tongue, in Hindi, and all 22 Indian languages. And therein people can go and ask for service. And therein also another problem that we realize in the rural areas is that very often multiple government departments implement multiple schemes. Ministry of Rural Development itself implements so many schemes. But citizens for whom, beneficiaries for whom these schemes are designed, they themselves don't know that such scheme exists, or which website to go or which app to download. To solve that problem, we implemented a program called My Scheme, in which a person can go myscheme.gov.in, wherein a user, a beneficiary, or a person in the rural area or any part of the country can go and give his basic demographics. I am so and so, I am a farmer, or I am a student, or I am a small businessman, and my age is this, I live in this area. And then the system will show that these many departments have got these many schemes which you can apply. And then they can apply then and there and get benefits, as also track the progress of the delivery of that scheme. And in the Bhashini project, the team went a step further. And what they did was that they integrated the My Scheme algorithm with the WhatsApp APIs and Bhashini APIs and ChatGPT APIs. When ChatGPT came as a big revolution 6 months back. And today what has happened is that we are testing a pilot on an application called Jugalbandi, wherein a person can go and ask a question and get a reply back in voice. So it happens with voice and voice. And if a minute is there, then I can just give a brief demo of how it works.
I think next round I'll ask you to come with that.
Okay, so what it does is that one can ask a question. In fact, Satya Nadella has been talking about it in various forums, in which a person comes and says that I am so and so, I am a farmer, what are the schemes there? Then in voice, you get the answer back. And now this is being scaled up, and it will also be available to feature phone users, wherein people can call up a toll-free number and identify themselves, give their basic profile, and get the reply back. So that will really be empowering, so that even people without smartphones can access such services. And to just conclude by endorsing what Atik sir mentioned about sharing of data between the Government of India and state governments. This is a policy that Government of India has endorsed, and we have projects like Poshan Tracker, in which the data is collected by Anganwadi workers. Almost 14 lakh Anganwadi workers collect data for 10 crore pregnant women and infant children. And this data, which comes from the states, is available to the states through APIs. But that should become the norm for all departments. Wherever data is collected with the state is the owner of the data, and any data which is available in a central application or portal should be accessible to the state governments for their planning purposes or implementation of the project. So thank you with that.
Thanks, Abhishek, for giving us tons and tons of examples of how this is done. And I just want to tell all the presenters that you will get 2 more opportunities to talk about what you're talking. Don't bundle everything into your first intervention. That was my email to you, that the first one should not be more than 6 minutes. You have to go, so you want to bundle everything before you go. I can understand that. Now, let me go to Mr. T. Koshi, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Open Network Digital Commerce. ONDC, as you know, is one of the most innovative things to come out of the Indian ecosystem. And I think it really is challenging the fragmented nature of the e-commerce market and trying to develop a voice for all the people who want to participate in the e-commerce, democratizing e-commerce in a way. Mr. Koshu, over to you. 6 minutes.
Thank you. So what I'll do is I'll first, maybe a minute or so, I'll just try to give a big picture of what's ONDC trying to do, because many of you are aware, but some of you I realize may not be aware. So because we are all familiar with e-commerce, and we are very familiar, and our familiarity with e-commerce come from platforms. Few platforms that we either, when it comes to food, you have Swiggy, Zomato. When it comes to consumer goods, you have Amazon, Flipkart. When it comes to travel, you have Ola, Uber, all of them. So in our mind, e-commerce is about platform. But one that is, and whenever somebody thinks about, ONDC, they think that it is another super platform or platform of platform or a super app. First thing is that I want to take out that myth out of your mind. It is not a super app. It's not a super platform. It's a network. And when I say network, it will say it's just semantics. The answer is no. It has a humongous transformatory potential of the way commerce is undertaken. Okay, so let's go a little more deeper into that. Today, what is the challenge in a platform? Challenge in a platform is that they use proprietary protocol and proprietary platforms to ensure that they have a close user group. It's a walled garden. If you are a seller in one of the platform, you are visible only to the buyer in that platform. So if you as a seller want to be there in visible to the buyers of multiple platforms, they have to make the IT system, process system, everything to meet both these things. So it becomes a challenge. So this means that by its very own design, these platforms will become bigger and bigger and bigger. The network effect will ensure that and lead to humongous amount of concentration. And there are many practices associated with the concentration, which is a challenge. One big issue itself is that, whenever such proprietary platform work, the primary accountability for them is to their shareholders. So they want to look at to maximize their interest. When they're trying to maximize the interest, the user group that they will bring, whether on the buyer side and the seller side, are the one that what we call the cream of the society. And the products that is meant for cream of the society. While I'm sure that all of us are sitting here are active users of digital commerce, even in food or in consumer goods and everything, but we are the elite of this country, all said and done. So that's why if you look at e-commerce penetration, when you come to, is my 5-6% on the buy side and maybe a couple of percentage in the sell side. Because it is the idea is to get the cream of the cream who could come and buy, make them a very, very close group of buyers, so that with them as your support, go and tell the sellers, boss, I can give you 100 million consumers. So you are the only, I'm the only savior for you. And that 100 million consumers are the elite class. So products are only of that relevance. So that's why you would see mostly, even while you see the large numbers that's happening, if you go a little deeper into it, that you would see that most of the products are again meant for people like here. And that is what we are trying to address the issue. Break the walled garden and make the commerce a democratic place. What do you mean by democratic place? Look at the basic thing. One is everybody should have equal opportunity. Every seller should have the equal opportunity to present their goods to the whole universe of buyers, not any private group of buyers. He should be able to present. Like, for example, we are all familiar with the way information dissemination happened. If I decide to set up a website called koshi.com, or if I decide to set up a website called ondc.com, anything, what happens? What I give out is I place that in HTML page, from any of the service providers. I don't care. I don't try to go and register with Chrome or, Edge or anything, because I know that any browser can discover me. What drives traffic to my site is the quality and what I am presenting and whom is it relevant for. So everybody should have the equal opportunity to present, and based on what you're presenting, the traffic may be different. Second thing is that every seller should have the liberty to make their offer, their terms of trade. In the physical world, they have the terms, the ability to decide how they should advertise, what should be the scheme, everything. Whereas when it comes to the centralized platform, they have the full control. They will decide where you should get, based on the incentive that you are willing to give, based on the payment that you can make, advertising that you can do. They'll decide which part of the page you should come and, whether you should come at all. So those kind of things become, so terms of trade also is significantly decided by them, not by the seller. So all these things mean that significantly a large cross section of small and medium and micro enterprises find it very difficult to participate, and the customers who for whom these products are relevant are unable to access. That's why we are trying to look at what we are trying to do in the ONDC is to break this one. So what it would mean that we are doing only two fundamental things. One is unbundling and interoperability. What does unbundling means? It means that the very building blocks of transaction, let's simplicity say the selling side and buying side, there are many things more. The selling side means that I will help the seller to present my goods. That's it. He doesn't have to worry who will come and buy. And the buying side will feel that I will give a interface to the users, my kind of users. I could be an elite like a bank, or I could be somebody who's going discount store. But I know what's about, the kind of people I am sort of servicing, and I'll help them to buy what is relevant. So that gives humongous possibility for innovation and specialization. Today also in the e-commerce platform, you will see innovation and specialization. That is to meet the interest of that small group of people, the shareholders, and the elite customers who are there, and the elite sellers who are there, relevant one. Rest of the people are insignificant. And we believe that this kind of things brings humongous opportunity, and I have to respect what Dr. Parmesh has said. So I will take in my second session what are the kind of possibilities that we can, that will come out of this open network to really strengthen the larger cross-section of the industry, especially small and micro enterprises.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koshi. It's a very complex formulation, but presented in a very simple way. So I will ask you a follow-up question also and give you more time because you stuck to time. So I'll give you some additional time for that as well. So now we go over to Nidhi. Nidhi is the Chief Executive Officer of NASCOM Foundation. And can you about what NASCOM
Sure. Thank you, Parmesh. I think a lot of you must be knowing what NASCOM is. And sorry, is that clear? Yeah. NASCOM is basically represents the tech industry, and NASCOM Foundation is NASCOM's foundation. So we are in a way representing the philanthropic work of tech industry. What do we do? Representing the tech industry, sorry, is there a problem with the mic? Is this clearer? Yeah? Okay, great. What do? We work with the agenda of tech for good, any technology which has social impact. What we believe in is reaching the last mile. Um, Let me take you to April 2022. Um, there's this girl, actually a woman, a 20-year-old woman living in the tribal area of Madhya Pradesh, the Bagh area, which is basically tribal dominated. It's an area which is dominated and excel in a print called Bagh. We have hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs, all of them are women out here, who are excelling in that art. Uh, Most of them were happy earning about 2,500 to 3,000 rupees per month because they didn't know how to sell it beyond the communities that they live in or were dependent on middlemen. Um, we, along with the intervention from one of the tech companies, started a program where we started upskilling uh, these women artisans into basically through technology intervention. So it was basics that we take for granted: how to use internet, how to access social media, how to onboard themselves in e-commerce. Today in June 2023, in about 15 months time, Geeta on an average earns 6,000 rupees a month. How was that possible? That was possible by that small intervention of teaching them and convincing her and her family why she should invest in a smartphone. Um, I'm one of her customers. I'm wearing a sari done by her, which she has sold to me through WhatsApp. Uh, Now you convert this into millions of Gita. That is the intervention that we need through technology if we really need to make an impact in the rural world. And that is what we do at NASCOM Foundation. We are all here talking about different platforms, different technology, uh, but there is a huge gap between the technology available and adaptation and adoption of that technology, right? And that is the role that we try and play. We try and bridge that gap. Definitely, there is a higher penetration in the rural area for the phones, but there is also a huge gender divide. If you look at the data, the number of users who are using smartphones and feature phones are men compared to women. Uh, that is so, we are talking about a $1 trillion economy by 2025. None of that is possible unless it's inclusive growth. Inclusive in two ways. One, rural India. Two is women has to be a part of the story. And that is all, whether we talk about UPI or we talk about ONDC, none of that is possible unless we make the women out there digitally equipped out here. So our goal out here is that we want to reach the last mile. We work with, we support in a way the CSC centers and all by setting up our own digital resource centers. We are ensuring that we make the person at the last mile digitally aware, digitally literate, and they are able to access whether it is for upskilling, whether it's for skilling, whether it's for employability, whether it is for entrepreneurship. Um, we last year, our small interventions have been that we last year upskilled about women, about 1 lakh women entrepreneurs in about 6 states across the country. Um, and out of that 1 lakh entrepreneurs, today more than 90% of them are using technology in one way or the other. More than 52% of these women have been able to get a loan because of adoption of technology. Uh, these are small interventions that really go a long way in ensuring that whatever the private sector or whatever the government comes up with, it reaches the last mile. And I think the whole thing, what I found missing in right now in the conversation is, which I highlighted a little earlier, is um, are we making this growth gender inclusive? Are we ensuring that whatever platform we are creating, whatever technology we're creating, whatever schemes that we have, are they concentrating on women? Because there are many social economic barriers out there, and unless we are addressing those, a lot of this scheme development, all of that will probably not meet the end goal, because a lot of design that we have may not be uh, gender inclusive. I think I'll just stop at that, Ramesh.
Thanks a lot, Nidhi. You brought a new aspect of it. So I think you should look at the technology and the skills which the women are building. And I think there's a huge deficit in terms of investment in that area. So I'll now move to our final presenter of final panelist of this session before we move to the Q&A, both with the audience and the panel. Aniket Dogger, co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of Haq Darshak. Aniket, over to you.
Thank you. So I think we at Hakdarshak essentially are a social enterprise focused on tech and working on delivery of government schemes and documents. I'll just spend some time on 4 points. One, how are schemes designed? Uh, in India, government schemes in a sense are rules based, and they are, by virtue of being targeted, they are also exclusionary. So universal bus pass is a universal scheme. As you keep adding caste, income, gender, all these criteria, it starts becoming more and more rules based. So this is the nature of government entitlements. And for every government entitlement, because it is rules based, there are also documents required. When I started this work about 10 years back, where there was none of these platforms available to us as entrepreneurs, the first problem that I saw was that there is a huge information gap, which I think is already been addressed in some of the conversations we've had. That how do you, as a citizen at the last mile, know what are you eligible for? In our initial research at our own team, we estimate there are 20,000 government schemes. 13,000 are listed on the NPCI website itself. These are not unique. These might be different states and different names, but there are these government schemes and they have these different rules, eligibility criteria of caste, income, disability, all these different aspects. And then there are about 40 to 50 government documents required to get these schemes. So how do you get the information? So essentially, first step is the eligibility criteria and getting the citizens the information. That was the first phase. The second understanding after getting the information piece was that in India is an assisted tech country. However, technical innovation we do, whether it's just not socio-economic, it relates to the age, it relates to any kind of diversity in geography, all those aspects, we will remain an assisted tech country. And that's where we started building our platforms for the agents. And we also leveraged the SAG Women Network, which is a fantastic network. One observation there, though, and I think a lot of people in the room who are probably the people who have set up these networks will acknowledge that 20% of every network does 80% of the work. I realized this after looking at data across, that everywhere it's the top 20%, and those are the in-demand network agents across the country, right? So one of the things was, how do you get the next set of agents and the next set of people to use these services? And I think that's where we've been investing most of our time, in terms of how do you build this agent-led entitlement delivery, which ensures doorstep information, doorstep application, and then using platforms both of state and central government, in terms of platforms like Umang, DigiLocker, where we can directly, we are already using some of these platforms to kind of integrate and apply. The third step that I feel, and I think which is absolutely like a white space in social entitlements, is what you would call after sales delivery or customer quality service delivery in this space. Something like, for example, in this room, we would get in something like a passport or visa, which is managed by a TCS or VFS. There's a story like one of our Hakdarshikas, Manisha in Palghar in Talasari, basically went door to door at the time of COVID and identified, because we pushed a simple SMS notification, and identified 5 families who didn't have a clue they were under the Pradhan Mantri life insurance scheme. And she got every of those 5 families 2 lakh rupees. That's after sale service, which brings me to the point that there is an absolute gap in schemes literacy. We talk about digital literacy, financial literacy, and we have fantastic government schemes, but there is absolutely no schemes literacy. Citizens do not know whether Ayushman Bharat is a cashless insurance, it's a contribution insurance. What is the difference between Atal pension scheme and a national pension scheme? What is a girl child savings scheme? So we do need to spend a lot of effort on actual schemes literacy, which will make the whole process inclusive, where citizens will start asking. Because the whole concept of social security is a European concept where you get pension, insurance, and all these benefits. India is a unique country which does direct benefit transfers to match livelihoods. Cash transfer is a program to match livelihoods, because livelihoods doesn't take pace. So we need more and more of the country. The government has just launched the insurance Vahak program 2 days back, I think few days back, which the goal is to cover the entire country on insurance. I think the capability of rural India there to be able to contribute us to those pension and insurance funds is also massive. So I think those would be my broad 4 points in terms of ensuring that information reaches the last mile, build for assisted tech, and build for agents in the country. If we build for them, we'll be building for the last mile automatically. Focus on after sales delivery, quality after sales delivery, and consider these citizens as customers. And also, I think creating a layer of schemes literacy for entitlements.
Thanks a lot, Aniket. So you will see very different perspectives here. So I would pose one question to each of the panelists, and then bring in you, audience, to ask some questions also, and then ask the response from there. So Abhishek, I bring you first, since you were going earlier, it seems. Is that what do you see, what will you recommend to Ministry of Rural Development if it's investing in the next phase? What is the enablers or the foundational investments it should invest in, so that the next level of rural programs and transformation is digitally enabled from day one? What would you recommend? Give me 2 or 3 practical suggestions to them.
See, one core thing that I would recommend to Ministry of Rural Development is to follow the kind of platform architecture that is being done in, say, health, like Ayushman Bharat Health Mission is bringing together all such platforms into one interconnected API-based interoperable system, so that any data which emanates from one system also benefits the other. Similarly, education also doing the same thing with the NDR project, which they are doing. Agriculture is doing the same thing with the IDEA project. The rural development, since we also implement multiple schemes, if we follow those common standards, interoperability, what we call the India digital ecosystem architecture, if we follow that architecture, then we will be able to interlink with other systems. Because any citizen is not a citizen for a particular department. Departments are for our administrative convenience. But a citizen deals with agriculture, citizen deals with health, he deals with rural development. So all of it should be possible. And the way it is being architected and the vision that we have is that if there is somebody is a Manrega beneficiary, we know that he is doing wage labor and is getting 100 days of wages, he is actually poor. So he should not be required to apply for Ayushman Bharat health card. He should automatically become eligible. The state should be able to issue him a health card without he applying for that. So when we build interconnected systems following common standards, interoperable systems, we build a whole of government approach, and that enables ease of living for the citizen, reduces the hardship, and he should not be required to prove his credential to every entity. Any information that we have, what we call it, ask only once. Any data, any information that we have about a citizen, suppose his address is there, verified in Aadhaar, then he should be able to use that address as a domicile proof for applying for anything. If his date of birth is there, he's enrolled in a school and he's belonging to a particular caste community, and there is a scholarship which is there for him, he should be able to get that automatically without he applying to that. If Ministry of Rural Development adopts that architecture, integrates all their programs into that kind of schema, it will create a lot of value for people across the ecosystem.
Thanks a lot, Abhishek. I would come to Mr. Koshi now. So you realize that the penetration of e-commerce in rural areas is very low right now. What would the platform do in addition to what you are recommending about everyone coming on one platform? What should the ministry do to create more enabling? They already have a network of 10 crore women who are part of this network, which is 50 crore population, is part of this institutional network. How does this particular network acquire a significant share of the e-commerce market, and how does penetration increase in this?
Okay, let me just give some examples on how we are approaching, because you know it's a very new project. How this is making humongous amount of possibilities. I said that because of the interoperable protocol, every seller, if he's a part of any single platform, is visible to all the buyers. So now let's try to look at, because at the end of it, only if there is buyer, there's sellers, only if there's seller, there's buyer. So let's try to look at how the buying population suddenly become a humongous opportunity to any seller. See, there are different enterprises today, like telcos, like banks, like fintech, all have digital consumers. Today, if they want to provide access to buying any good, they will have to go and list those sellers. And that's not their expertise. So in an ONDC world, they only have to create a buying interface using this ONDC protocol, like UPI protocol, like HTML, or whatever. What it means is that if you are a person using any of the buying interface, you can see every seller. So suddenly, instead of this closed platform with 100 million consumers, 200 million consumers, or 50 million consumers, the whole billion population has a possibility to come to a common market. Not just the elite, which is happening. So how does the rural segment benefit? So we already have examples of people trying to create rural demand. I'll give you a couple of examples. We have we are all familiar with CSC. CSC is going to go live in the next 1 month as a rural customer. So he's creating a buying application. So all the village adhigaris across the country, the village level entrepreneurs, suddenly become the means for the village people to do assisted commerce. So all those, that means they become the buying front end for all the villagers. He says CSC is the only one. There are 2 other private sector enterprises. In fact, today morning I was spending time with a company which has just gone live as a buying application. Their name is AirPay. So they were explaining to be their very critical strategy of making their rural representative to provide assisted buying for the village level people from the digital, from all the products that can be available. Suddenly you are talking about demand getting generated for those kind of products, not just for iPhones and high-end products that we all buy. There is another company called Spice Money. There are many of them who's focusing exclusively on building the demand generation. So those people who are not today there in the digital market as a buyer is coming in. So now look at the possibility first. Look at Charlie, 1 to 1.2 billion is a common market. Only thing is each of the buying application will decide. For example, I'm just making some name, like HDFC Bank may decide that I'm going to give the elite people like sitting here to buy what they want, the iPhones of the world. But CSC may say that I'm going to help the village people to buy what they need. If they want a phone, it could be a feature phone maybe. If they want to buy Atta, let that be. If they want those local people to buy, collect and sell locally, let that be. So what does it open for the seller side? In fact, I'll again give you some of the initiative that has already come. You know, SIDBI. SIDBI said that I'm going to help the artisans to find a place in the digital market. So one of the first thing they do, they went to Kanchipuram because there are a lot of people who like Kanchipuram silk sarees. He said that I am going to help those weavers to make their product visible in this ONDC network with the the one, so that we were sitting here today. I'm sure that many of us buy Kanchipuram sarees for our family. Today we are used to going to Nallis of the world, and it comes at they might be coming from the same weaver, but it comes at 3 times because of the the whole chain. Now imagine that Durga Silk who can to make it digital visible, and suddenly she gets a better price, we get a better price. So the market, they get a market. Similarly, they are also working with the Mandeshi Foundation, which is essentially women entrepreneurs, created a small cohort of the people and getting their product visible. And they've said that all those lakhs of women entrepreneurs will be enabled. 3 is like, again, I'm example, somebody who's already gone live, Kudumbashri in Kerala. Kudumbashri in Kerala is already live in the network. You can go to our network, use the buying application, buy the product from there. Those ladies need not worry about how they will reach to Delhi because there is a logistics provider also available in the network, which make it possible. So so what are the kind of intervention that we are working? I'm just giving an example. Any ministry which has got any access to their different segment of producers or buyers can find them being part of the network. For example, I was working with Abhishek. Abhishek explained to you about their platform they created for He Handymade. And they're going to make it ONDC protocol compliant. Today, he has to worry about how to bring people to their portal to buy. The moment their portal become ONDC compliant, all these billion people become their potential customers. So these are the kind of possibilities that is coming up. Ministry of Small and Enterprises said that they're going to work with helping the small enterprises to take advantage of it. So it is it is not about technology, it's about processes, it's about digital literacy, it's about how to even create a sort of create an invoice or create a label that will post office will pick it up and get it delivered here. Even that kind of knowledge is not there. So they're saying that, okay, let's look at the small enterprise, they could micro enterprise. There are different levels of maturity. Matured one can be brought in online fast, or can we have a complete assistance program to make these people to take advantage of the equal opportunity? While the network provide equal opportunity, everybody do not have the equal capability. So can we create equal capability? It is a long journey, but that can be done. So these are the kind, and similarly, we work with them in agriculture ministry. They've already brought in about 120 or about 190, 200 FPOs already available. You can go and buy millets. You can buy honey, pure honey from Jammu Kashmir. I'm just giving you an example. So these are all, at this point of time, I'll say these are only POCs. And we can also bring in, like for example, MSMEs coming under the RAM funding, which is also funded by the World Bank. So it could be multilateral agencies, it could be philanthropic agencies. We're having many philanthropic agencies who's already coming and say that they will identify a cluster which is relevant and help them to take advantage of this opportunity. And this is where there could be somebody even create a very unique application with a voice assisted support in a native language to help the local buyers to buy what is relevant for them from anywhere in the country. AI and technology can help. Supposing I'm a small village farmer in some part of Telangana, I want to buy something from some machine products from Chandigarh. I will say in Telugu what I want. It will get converted, and the person who's sitting in Chandigarh will get the request in Hindi. And they will, the whole, and some A third-party service provider like, let's say, Shiprocket or even India Post will pick it up and can deliver. So this is, I mean, I'm just giving you some example of what an open network can do in terms of humongous amount of support in innovation, specialization, and empowering everybody equally to succeed based on what they're capable, not because somebody is throwing in, the VC money to get a capture. So the current strategy of the e-commerce, I have a very cynical way of saying, that's my last comment, is to drug the buyer and push the seller. Because once you have a drug the buyer, you become a monopsony buyer. Then you can squeeze the sellers. What we are saying that bring democratization. Every seller has an equal opportunity to sell what is possible. Every buyer opportunity to buy what is relevant for them. Not because somebody pushing it down his throat, because the buyer application has a true agent will help him to choose what is relevant for him. Let me just close there.
Thanks a lot. So I think you can clearly see, you can approach him. Any of the groups can approach him. Kudumshri is already working with them. So anyone wants to approach them, please approach them, because we want more proof of concepts right now in the rural space so that it becomes scaled up. If I can take indulgence from my panelists, I will now try to bring audience in so that you respond to their questions, because if I go away without fulfilling my promise, then I'll be beaten outside this room. Okay, so audience, please, now up to you. Yeah, I can see, how many hands can I see? Yeah, I can see 3 hands. Gentlemen at the back, do we have mics there? Do we have mics in the audience? Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I have a mic.
Go ahead, red
So-
mic.
Yeah. So my question is to this open network things, because when we say the e-commerce is the small element, commerce is the major element. So because we also are trying to do this sort of things, but basically we are technologically very sound. We have a platform also, e-commerce platform. But the main thing is that because where you go to do the e-commerce things, you need a supply chain arrangement, you need a arrangement for the delivery, everything. So, and you need to have a definite team of inventory management and everything, because in a Blaze setup, the products available are very specific products. But when you come for a e-commerce platform, its requirement is very huge. So how, matlab this in open network platform, how a rural woman in the rural setups, or how a producer's company in the rural setups maintain the inventory which is required, and how they will also manage, matlab how they are going to do the final mile delivery kind of things. So that is, I think, little.
We got your question. So I'll take a couple of more questions so that we can answer it in total. So I'll come to you now, since we have a gender balance in questions also. Yeah, please go ahead. Please introduce yourself. I'll come to one person at the bank. I'll take 2 more questions and then we'll come back. Can I see all the hands now? Okay. Sorry, the backbenchers get a preference. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Rumi Prakash. Since we're talking about digitalization, I would like to know what about the data security, and because this also involves a lot of transaction. So when we're talking about e-commerce websites, or even having our data secure data on open network, so what about the digital security of people, and also with the banks transactions, everything? So there are a lot of frauds that is happening. There are also people losing money because of the data available so easily. And so how does when
Okay,
we are
data security, we
yeah.
got your point. Next, please, at the back. Okay, the gentleman with the specs at the back, the backmost. Get up, get up. Otherwise, you lose your chance if you don't get up.
No, I won't. Thank you. So my question is to Aniket. My name is Pranav from Save the Children. So Aniket, you spoke about a couple of way forwards, and I really want to understand the second one, where we are talking about building agents. At frontline level, there are already Panchayat Sevak, Tola Sevak, who are supposed to do the same work that the agents are going to do or they are doing. So don't you think creating or building agents, we are also going to create a parallel structure in terms of delivering social entitlements, which are basically a right for which we have to pay? if we are going to create agents. So that is one thing.
No, no, only one. Sorry. Next, the lady. Yeah, go ahead at the back. Your question, please.
Hi, I'm Vandana from the Children's Investment Fund Foundation. My question was targeted to Abhishek Singh, but he's out. So I'll keep it open for the other panelists. We talk of making digital public good, but we also know that there is a huge gender divide. And women in India, especially young women in rural parts, are 25% less likely to be using internet or use digital services. So do we see that as a barrier? And if yes, how are we thinking of addressing that? And I think Nidhi picked up that during her I mean, when she was talking about it, but what are we doing about it? And is that a priority for you, all of you, to solve it?
Okay, so we'll take these, and if we get more time, we'll come to the next round. So please, let's go to the audience. So, Mr. Koshi, first to you. Uh, I think what he's trying to say that there's a lot of organization involved on the other side to get the products ready for the e-commerce market. How will that play out?
Okay, as I again said, when I say unbundling, it means every building block of transaction. There's a seller who produces. He needs to package it. He needs to have a logistic support. Probably, like for example, somebody from Tanjavur want to send a bulk shipment to, let us say, Delhi, because he feels that there's a lot of demand there. When it comes to bulk shipment, he got it bulk packed and send it. Probably he need to warehouse it for some time. And when it is warehoused, probably it need to be unbundled and supplied locally using a local support service. These are all, I just gave an example. So the beauty of an open network is that each of these components can be done by people who are good at. The producer, the weaver will make the sari. Let us say when she's sending a bundle across to Delhi, intercity logistics provider will bring it as a bundle. It is possible that there will be a warehouse who is providing a warehouse as a service and where it will be stored. And when an order gets placed for a single sari, which has to be picked up from the warehouse, packed and sent it, a packager might do it done this. The beauty is that we can all link this very nicely together. So let me just highlight one thing. Whenever I say unbundle, people say that we are also used to doing platform everything. You say that's the only way we can do life. So let me just address that point. Is that every business other than e-commerce is done unbundled fashion. Even if you look at the age-old non-digital way of distant commerce was catalog commerce. There again, all these things happen. So if you have standards and processes well built in, this can be nicely stitched together without user inconvenience. And we have the way that is there, it is not theory. We have already proven that. Like I said, in the last 2-3 months when the Kudumbashree came live, they have already done about 600-700 transactions already from people picking from all across. And many of the weavers have already got customers buying this stuff. So these are, I know, but there'll be a lot more things you will have mind. I mean, you can reach across to me and I can explain all of them. The point I'm saying is we are thought through all these issues and we have very clear answers. And if any of you as individually or an organization want to know more about it, we'll be happy to do that. And if you go to the website, you'll see a lot of stuff that's available.
Thank you very much. Aniket, you have a very specific question. Yeah.
No, I think that's a very important question in terms of the way we look at entitlements. I think the rights that we different rights that we have and different certain entitlements we have, I see that all the functionaries of the government or elected representatives, their job is more to provide the guardrails and ensuring that the actual delivery happens. But the service delivery itself requires high quality on the ground agents. And I think there is a very important requirement to create that at scale. How do you, like you said in your beginning statement, that how do you create like BC Sakhis an entitlement service delivery agent network? And for her time or for his time, the last mile agent's time. I think there is a service delivery fee that is required. It is the same way that we say like banking services, or why do we have other government services which are otherwise supposed to be delivered by, like whether it's bill payments or whether it is other services which are now taken up by the public private partnership or the agent side. So I really think that it will push high quality by creating what we are calling a parallel structure, because it will weed out inefficiencies, provide more accountability, as long as they get a level playing field. I would rather first question that if there is already an existing infrastructure in the system which is supposed to provide an entitlement, and a young entrepreneur in the same community wants to do it as an individual, are we providing him or her the same level playing field? Or are we saying that just because it's social entitlements or any such thing, that that person has a disadvantage? Because it is written in the system that only I can provide you this service. Because in a sense, we are saying is, shouldn't everyone be able to provide information, which should be free, and then a choice to go to the government functionary, go to the CSC, go to the social enterprise who's there, or go to the agent, wherever the family or the citizen is comfortable, willing to pay a high quality service at the doorstep. That is the kind of democratic choice that citizens need to have. And the more competition we have, hopefully the better quality and better saturation we have of such entitlement. So I think the existing, especially the constitutional provisions we have, should act more as guardrails and provide that kind of support to the market agents that are there.
Thank you very much. So I think I will take the gender question and then I'll pose a question to Mr. Atik at the end, which will try to summarize the session and finish at the right time. And so, Nidhi, so this question was raised. I think you're doing a lot of interesting work on that. Now, has the government thought about this, about really investing in really creating that architecture, enabling architecture for a lot of women to participate in the digital economy, especially in the rural areas? Okay, okay. I'll start with Atik also. Atik Saab leads the whole government effort experience on the gender side of things. There are a lot of agents now at the panchayat level. What has been the participation of women in the digital initiatives?
More than 50% of the Gram Panchayat members are women in Karnataka, and almost 56% of the Panchayat's members are women. And we are looking at the gender aspects also, particularly the special circumstances where perhaps their access to to digital technologies could be poorer. So what we are doing is that number one, we are the Gram Panchayats are entering into a memorandum of understanding with the Gram Panchayat level federations of women self-help groups for providing services to the Gram Panchayat. Most notably, recently we have done it for the solid waste management of the entire Gram Panchayats, number one. Number two, when it comes to the Gram Panchayat meetings, etc., about 50% of the women are members. So in the software, we have brought in various special we have paid special attention to. One example I can give you is that we are integrating speech to text and text to speech technologies in our software. So what happens is that many of the people, sometimes they are not able to, there's some literacy, but they're not able to read what is written by the Panchayat Development Officer. So the software, once the Panchayat Development Officer writes something in Kannada in the software, then if you press a play button, then it will read out as to what the person has written, so that the members, not just women, but both women and men can hear what they are what is written properly, and then they can affix the signature. The same thing is that if they want to contribute, then they will speak, and that speech will get converted into text. That is this one. And the number in terms of our digital library system, boys and girls come to our libraries, and then they take advantage of the learning environment, etc. In terms of actual access, improving the access to gender, I would say that because we are working through self-help groups, and like the Kudumbashri model of Kerala, We are nowhere as close to that, but we are actually aspiring to reach the Kudumbashri kind of service provision where women get involved in various aspects of Gram Panchayat uh, and uh, recently some of our Jilla Panchayats have given the contract of providing the canteen services to women self-help groups. So the engagement of women with the panchayat, we are taking various steps to increase, and not just in digital space. And I think once they come in, then their exposure to digital technologies or the exposure to governance also will get assisted.
Thanks a lot. Maybe will come now that now you know what government is doing. I a lot of efforts with foundations and others. Now, this is one of the largest efforts all over the world. Now, NASCA Foundation has an opportunity to which you have never have seen anywhere. What is your recommendation that if you want to work on these issues, on increasing the gender inclusivity of all the digital work, what would you suggest to government?
Sure, thanks, Ramesh. That's a great opportunity. One of the things that, sorry, every time I get a not a great mic, yeah, thank you. When it comes to the Ministry of Rural Development, I think the NRLM program is a great program. I think the kind of reach that the ministry has through the NRLM program, there is a need to probably include the digital literacy part out there, because while these women are being integrated in the cooperatives, there's a huge gap when it comes to their own digital literacy awareness and knowledge. So I think one is that, and second is that if any kind of technology, what I said earlier, any kind of technology which is integrated in any program, can one work on it making women the center of the design program and not an afterthought? Because we sometimes do come up with solutions and we later on want to say, how does a woman get into that, right? And if you're trying to solve a problem, which is a very big problem in a country, then the woman has to become a part of that center part of the program. And I think one thing is, I think it's a great opportunity for the industry to contribute. And if there is a provision, and this obviously needs a lot of work, but there's a provision when the amount of funds that are coming from CSR, if it could incentivize something that is happening for women in the rural areas, if the industry could get an incentive for that, probably there'll be more push and pull out here from investing for women in the rural areas. And I think that's one opportunity, I would say, from an industry point of view, that if one can actually incentivize that part of it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No, that's very helpful. So I think we have discussed a range of issues. So it was session had all the examples were very unique in their respect, but had some commonalities. I would say that I think I would repeat that this is a big opportunity. The next phase of rural transformation should include digital as a very major enabler. It's not just digital, it's data, digitization, services, platforms, ecosystems. We should think in a different way while we are designing the next phase of it. So the institutional platform which has been created through the National Rural Livelihood Mission should now marry with a digital and a more innovation platform there. And I personally feel that we should use a plug and play model in which a lot of innovators could keep on coming and innovate, do proof of concepts, do products and services. So I would recommend to the ministry to really create a platform which allows a lot of people to innovate with this platform there. It could be about product, and we will hear in this conference about, this is not the only session. We have a session on financial inclusion, a session on entrepreneurship, where a lot of these examples are going to be discussed. But clearly, we have examples on how panchayats could become very digitally enabled and transparent, and governance could be improved there. We have examples of the whole new innovations which are coming from the ONDC platform, which could, and then the whole area of entitlements where there's plethora of information scattered lying there, but no mentor and a coach to accompany people to this journey. So like we have a lot of financial counselors available. There's no entitlement counselor available there. So what you're doing is very interesting if you are able to develop a digital platform. But I think what is important is what someone was talking about, that You need a voice-based platform, as I think Abhishek was saying, and you just ask on WhatsApp what you want, and it immediately tells you this is the entitlement, this is the scheme, this is the service. So we need to use technology very effectively now to use that and use the new functionalities which are going to come. I don't want to overplay the Chat GPT song, but clearly we have a school of thought which says that all the services you need now, you can just go to WhatsApp, talk about it, and you get all the lists of all the things you could do. So imagine if that was available, there is amount of automation will help in at least the first level of information being available. I will stop here, and because my purpose was to get audience involved, but also finish in time. And so I was conscious, I was given the mandate to finish this session on time, and I'm very proud that I thank you all of you very much for being very excellent panelists and really sharing your excitement of what you do. I would also suggest that the proceedings of this conference should include links to what each of these institutions are doing, so that we are able to learn from each other. And then this is not a one-off thing. I think we will work with government to build a blueprint for how this digital interface will happen for the last 10 years. And you will all be part of that consultation in the second phase, so that we are able to do something very different. I think in 2033, if we meet, I think we should be talking about very different kinds of things than what we've been talking now. Thank you very much, and we can break for coffee now.
Thank you, Dr. Parmesh and all the panelists. And thank you so much for the audience engagement as well.